Hello everyone and welcome to another car profile where we are looking at this legendary car. Yes, it's a Toyota Supra GT500 car. Now if you're new to the car profiles, we go into details with this car and any other cars that we do. So do subscribe to the channel to stay in touch with all the car profiles that are happening on the channel. You can check out the full playlist in the description. Now this car then, it's turbocharged 2-litre engine in this car, front engined rear wheel drive, and obviously it's supporting that very famous livery that we all know and love. A huge nostalgia hit when you see this livery every single time because of course it was in the original Gran Turismo as well. One of the most recognizable liveries in history in terms of Gran Turismo and also in Japan, as well as this car raced in the Japanese Grand Touring Car Championship, which did turn into Super GT in the end, from JGTC to Super GT. This car actually began with a H-box, but it did change to a sequential in 1997, which this model is based on. Let's jump into the profile and let's talk about this car a little bit more then as we go into the low-speed bot test. Now, if you're new to these car profiles, once again, we do 3 tests. We do a low-speed test, a mid-speed test, and a high-speed test. How are these defined? These are defined by Gran Turismo, and we pick one track from each of those classes and we see where the car stands. So we're racing the Audi R8 LMS Evo here at Laguna Seca. That means that car has the fastest lap here at the moment out of the cars we tested. We'll see where we end up, but we're 2 temps down currently. Now with this car then, let's go into some of the details with this car. Going through mid-speed corners like this one here, but it's helped a little bit with the camber. It does struggle with some understeer, some very strange understeer. It's like it's not got enough mechanical grip, and that could be due to the age of the car. Obviously, older car, much older car here, 1997, it will struggle against modern GT3 cars. Obviously, we're in the Group 3 class, which is essentially GT3 in Gran Turismo terms. We're through the corkscrew then and down here, and we are 4 temps down. However, the corkscrew, I would say, is one of its strengths here in terms of this circuit. You could really fly it in. Same with this corner as well. Camber and anything that will help mechanical grip really does help this car out massively as we go into the hairpin. It does suffer with some power oversteer. You do have to be careful of second gear because it does like to spin up those rear wheels. Let's head towards the line then. Let's see where we end up then. And we are 7.5 temps down there on the fastest lap. But we don't compare fastest laps in the end in terms of defining a car. We have a look at optimum speeds. Okay, so optimum laps. It's very much easier to get 10 optimum sectors than it is to get 10 optimum laps. And as you can see there, overall, it comes P5 there, 121.6 in terms of that optimum. It really did dominate the corkscrew compared to a lot of other cars. Now, in terms of seeing the split times of all this, it will end up on the website. I will promise you that is coming soon, so do keep an eye out for that. As we go to P11 now, which is a 4GT LM race car, obviously we're on the second lot on the leaderboard. So 11 cars are done now with the car profile. That's it for Laguna Seca, but we need to go to a medium speed track, which is Suzuka. Obviously a historic track for this car because of it being in the Japanese Touring Car Championship. It was there, you know, which now has become Super GT, of course. And as we leave turn 1, it really did like turn 1. Suffered when it got to around 100 miles an hour again. And this is where it suffers in the S's a little bit. You've got to abuse the gears a lot here in terms of getting it around. I have to brake a lot as well for this car to really get it turned in, basically. As we go through here, 80 miles an hour is my goal. We do get 33.683. Not too bad. Just below its... well, it's great grandson, is that? I'm not too sure in terms of the Supra there, the 2018 racing concept car as we go into Tidgney 1. It did struggle here again. You can see that understeer, the curb does help a little bit here. Tidgney 2, once you get below around 80 miles an hour, again, it starts to turn absolutely fine. And as we leave Tidgney 2, then we are 2 temps down on that Toyota Supra. The newer one did really dominate the Tidgney 1s and 2 there. Going to the hairpin then, again, you've got to be careful on exit of power oversteer. You can see that little wiggle there as we left that corner. And let's head towards Spoon now and see what this car's got. Now, this car, what it does have is top speed. It has plenty of top speed here, ladies and gentlemen. It can fly. It's actually faster in a straight line than the new Toyota Supra. I will say that right now. As we go through Spoon again, this is where it does start to struggle a little bit. You can see there, I'm constantly on the brakes, trying to get it around, trying to get it rotated if I can as we leave that corner. Top speed now, you're going to see it here. You do rev this car as well as we go through that Panasonic sign and head towards the next sector. We're looking or competing against a 137.5 there, and it's a 138.0 there, nearly half a second off then. Going through 130R, it wasn't too bad through there. There's definitely been slower cars, there's been quicker cars as well, but it wasn't too bad at all because it was past that 100 mph-ish speed where it starts to understeer. We leave the final corner there in the Casio triangle and head towards the start-finish line. What kind of lap time is this going to be then? It's a 1:59.73 there, 7 tenths down on that Toyota Supra. But once again, we do compare the Optimum times. So that's what we're going to do here at Suzuka as we get ready to show the leaderboards. 11 cars to compete against, including itself there, of course. And it comes home in P7. So it's a 1:59.571 in the end in terms of Optimum time. So it's 6 tenths off there, that BMW M6. So it's quite far away. You know, it's sitting right smack bang in the middle of the mid-pack there, if I do say so. And the Aston Martin, we know, is obviously one of the slowest cars here at Suzuka. Couldn't even get into the 59s. It does need some improvement, that Aston Martin. But the Toyota Supra holding its own, being an older car. We do know that in terms of Gran Turismo's philosophy, they like to make sure that the older cars are not as good as the newer cars. And, you know, it's still holding its own in there. Maybe because Toyota are a partner, I'm not too sure. The high-speed test, then we go to Bathurst. And as I said earlier on, this car loves top speed. It loves it to bits. It really does, as we'll see down the second straight. But we're racing against the BMW M6, which is actually a handling car, but it absolutely nailed its fastest lap, as we saw in the car profile. Make sure you check out that car profile for that BMW M6. However, we're going to head in towards this right-hander, and coming into here, again, it was just a bit awkward and clunky. That's what it felt like. It was very stable. It does have good stability, this car, in terms of when you're on the throttle, it does stick to the road. Now, coming through here, a lot of FR cars struggle on this corner. I wasn't too bad there, to be honest with you. I did short shift to third gear, and it did help. Obviously, once you get up in the speeds here, it does hold its own then in terms of grip there, maintaining quite a good speed through that right-hander, which we know. Going through here then, we're trying to keep that speed up. It's a little bit lower than a handling car, but again, this is all about pace, this car. As you see here, it's turning absolutely fine. No understeer showing there at all as we head down the hill then. And this is where this car is going to come into play once again. As we come through the right-hander, 1.5 tenths down that BMW. But coming through here, it loved that little bit of a dipper there. It loved it to bits. You could absolutely attack it, all guns blazing, and survive as we go into Forest Elbow. Again, this corner was a bit tricky. Second or third gear was very hard to decide because it did like a bit of power oversteer. But once you got going, it was fine. Now, let's have a look at this top speed. 170s, where roughly most cars sit. The handling cars are just below that, around 168, I think the BMW was. But this car, as I've said repeatedly now, loves top speed. We're only 1.5 tenths down on that BMW M6 as we head through here. Look at 172, 173 there. You have to brake quite early there at the 150 board as we go through here. Again, suffering a little bit of understeer there. It does suffer a little bit with that understeer. It's probably due to that power lift in the front end, if I'm honest with you, as we head towards the final corner. That would actually explain why we literally at higher speeds don't have that understeer, because the front isn't lifting as much and being pushed down. I don't know, but that's what I feel like with this car. Finished in the end, 2.5 tenths down on that BMW M6. Not too bad at all, really, there. But remember, we look at Optimums. We do not look at the fastest laps. It's just to give you a bit of a comparison as I show you the lap. Definitely got the top speed there, does that. And, well, there you go. It's P2. It's just behind its great-grandson there, or grandson, or whatever it is, in terms of the Toyota Supra concept. 3 tenths off it, to be fair, but I do feel it could get closer. You know, if there was a bit more time put into that car, it could get closer, but then all the other cars would push forward as well. See the worst car there, the Audi R8 LMS. We know that had troubles at the dipper, and that's very much a handling car, which is why that's so far down. And obviously, it's the older car as well, so it gets bumped down below its predecessor. Right, let's jump to the fuel test then, where we test out the car's fuel efficiency. So on the left-hand side, top left, maximum RPM. As the bar hits the end, we shift gears. On the right-hand side, top right, we've got a quarter shift. That's the best way to save fuel. And down at the bottom, we have the quarter shift plus fuel map. Why do we do that way? That's because you only use fuel map as a last resort, unless you're an automatic player, and that's your only choice. However, we're going to have a look at the time it gets to the end and then see the fuel level. And we've actually changed the fuel test, which I'll explain in a second. So top left is the first one that gets there, 25 seconds on the dot there. And you can see on the top right, actually, it's not far off with a quarter shift. So that suggests that it should be able to save fuel quite well in terms of performance. Let's actually advance a bit further on with this test then. You can see 1 tenth down there with a quarter shift. So I would argue that it can actually save fuel, or quarter shift at least, and not lose that much performance, which could be interesting going into the new manufacturer seasons that we have coming up. Down at the bottom, we have a quarter shift plus fuel map. It takes another 8 tenths from the original to get there, nearly 9 tenths there, and it finishes on 69%. nice in terms of the fuel there down at the bottom. So you can see that 14% saved there in the fuel. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to show you the new tables because they were getting confusing with so many results going in. What we're going to do then in terms of the fuel test, I'm going to show you maximum RPM where it comes P4 there. You can see the performance and the fuel. So you can see it's on 55 fuel and it's just below the Dodge Viper in terms of performance, but it saves 4% more fuel. So maybe you go with that Toyota Supra if you want to save a tiny bit more fuel. The Audi, of course, is a handling car. We know that. I did do a retest of that. So that's the second test I've done of that car. I did explain that last week as well. So that has been retested. So it might not match the car profile, but it has been retested. And I will retest these as I go. We go to a quarter shift then where it's P2. So it goes up the leaderboard there. Quarter shift, as I said, shows it doesn't lack performance. And it does save a bit of fuel there. It's on 61 versus 56 there of the Ford GT. And in brackets, it's the amount of fuel saved compared to the maximum RPM. So it doesn't necessarily save as much as others, but you can see how much it saves versus that maximum RPM. The Aston Martin, we know, did start to struggle there in terms of performance. And as we go to the fuel map 3 and a quarter shift, it drops back down to P4, but P2, 3 and 4, very close. That easily could be user error in any stretch of the imagination. But you can see the fuel there. So 14 saved. And yeah, it's very much there or thereabouts on that side of it. The Aston Martin, obviously, we know is it's essentially an endurance car. That 6th gear goes on for days. So it does have the highest fuel saved. But in terms of time, it's the slowest there as well. So that is it in terms of the fuel test. I may show fuel levels as well in there somehow, but that is what we're doing at the moment. Hopefully that's better presented. Do let me know if you want anything more changed with that. And I'm actually going to be changing the fuel test slightly, I think, but I will explain that in a separate video potentially, or at the end of this one. So we're going to a tyre test now, and we're on the oval. So what we do here is we're on times 50, and we're just going to do the oval until the first tyre goes. Now this test, I have a very new test that I want to explain, a very good test. A lot of people suggested using AI. I can't use the AI because it's really not the same in a per car basis. It's very bizarre. So what we're going to do is a test that I'm going to explain here. Look at the speed, by the way, 175 miles an hour. This car has pace. It really does. So we're just fast forwarding here to get to when the first tyre is about to run out. And we're getting to that point now here as we get towards the end of the test. So what we're going to do now, folks, as we get to it's still handling itself. Those in our bottom right tyre, there we go, rear right tyre done now, is we add up lap 1, 2, and what is remainder of lap 3 here, which is the 30.355. Now, because we are in an FR car, you have to compare against the FR cars. The MR cars will obviously use the tyre first on the rear because a big part of the tyre wear is weight and where the weight is placed. Obviously, it's at the front on this one, so the right rears don't wear as much. Now, what I'm potentially going to do with the tyres is actually do Sardinia Sea and do some laps there. But as you can see here, on the tyre test, it dominates. But I will tell you now, the front tyre wears more than the BMW M6. And I think that's quite critical. And that's why I want to do a separate tyre test. Because while its rear tyres last longer, in terms of the front tyres, they don't last as long. Because I carried on that test just to see that. So it is significant. And this is why I've been debating what tyre test to do. But in terms of the rear tyres, the Supras last for days, and that's probably the 2-litre engine helping there, you know, getting that power down and it being quite stable. In summary then, you can see there, P4 overall is still a second off the overall meta cars there of the Toyota Supra and the BMW M6. So something to keep in mind going forward, but it's at least there as a choice for the Toyota drivers who are racing that in the manufacturer. So as I said, with the tyre test, there's a potential there. I am going to look at Sardinia Sea and doing laps there until I can't do laps no more. And going down that method, I may try a couple of cars and we'll see where we go. If you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe. These tests, it's a lot of effort and hopefully it gives you the right information you need. And I'm constantly looking to improve them as I go forward. And I will do retests where I need to do retests. If you're interested in the last car profile I did, the BMW M6, check it out there. Another video there in terms of Beat the Meta. How did I get this car to win a race? Well, you can check it out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a like and do subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. I hope to see you in another video or live stream again very soon.